Hey everybody, so I'm here with a review for Cluster. This is going to be the review for the first trade paperback volume. I believe it, like the first 5-6 issues probably. This is a independent book, and it's I finished this one a few days ago, but I've had a hard time really trying to pinpoint how I really feel about this book because it just, I don't know, man. Like there's something about it, like there's plenty of things I don't like about it, but then at the same time I enjoy it overall. So essentially, the best way I would describe it is kind of like a cross between the Suicide Squad and like something like Starship Troopers. You have like on one side you have this kind of prison story where you have these inmates are like they can either choose to spend life in prison or they can choose to serve 15 years on this planet inside this prison on this alien planet that America or the government or whatever is trying to colonize. And basically, if you pick that option, you have to serve in the military, like fighting against these aliens, trying to clear off this planet so that we can develop, like resources and stuff on that planet. And of course, you may not survive, so it's like kind of like serve 15 years in the military, and if you live, you get your freedom at the end, or you spend life in prison. And in this society, there's it's kind of like in the near future. And in this society, it's very harsh rules. Like people are getting life in prison for things as simple as armed robbery, which that might actually be life in prison in some states. I don't really know, but it just seemed a little harsh to me. But overall, the idea of the story is that if we follow this young girl, who's kind of like this rich, snobby girl who's her dad's this big time politician, senator, and she ends up getting, I'm not going to spoil, I mean this isn't going to be a spoiler or anything because they literally show you this in the first few pages, but she ends up killing her sister during a drunk driving incident and basically gets life in prison. And she decides to send herself to the prison, volunteer for it, even though her father is very against it with his political campaign stuff. It's kind of like a final FU and repent at the same time. But when she goes to the prison, of course, she's kind of a target because everybody knows who she is. Everybody knows her dad. People either want to use her for some kind of political gain to get favor over because the dad, they think he can help them get out of the prison, or they just want to mess her up because they just don't like her or her father's policy. One reason or the other, she's a target on everybody in the prison. And the story basically focuses around that. It focuses around the possibility that she could like be more than what she is, but she's a very hesitant character. She's very like she just wants to serve her time and repent for her sins or whatever her mistake. So overall the story is pretty solid. It's kind of a basic story, but they eventually help become a rebel alliance or whatever to fight against some injustices that the prison is doing. There's even kind of a Suicide Squad element where every prisoner has a bomb implanted inside them, and if they don't return back to the base or the prison within 24 hours, they will blow up and die. So it kind of keeps people from trying to be deserters or whatever, or running out during a battle. And so essentially, so this is where my problems start to lie with the story, is that I kind of wish we would focus more on the prison, but we really don't. Like this first volume, the characters spend most of the time out in the battlefield, and they kind of get stranded, and then they have to kind of fight their way back. So we really don't see them actually in the prison setting very much. And I just think that was a missed opportunity, because you're going to set up this space prison thing, but then we barely ever get actual inmates in cells doing stuff like classic prison storylines. I just thought they should have spread that out a little better. Also, while I do enjoy a lot of the characters in this book, most of them are just written. They're just written incredibly repetitive. Like, take the main character for example. Her main character kind of trait or arc throughout this book is that she feels bad. She feels regret for accidentally killing her sister, and she sees her sister's dead face everywhere she goes. Every time there's another character that's in trouble, or like for example, there's a scene where a guy puts a gun up to one of her fellow soldiers' heads, and she sees her sister's head with a gun, and they really hammer that in. Like, it's kind of gets annoying. Like, that's her whole thing. Like, every time she talks, it almost feels like she's just reminding us about that. And it's not just her. There's other characters that have one core character trait, and that's all the dialogue ever. Like, all their dialogue is always reflective of that character trait. Like, there's another guy who's an older inmate that's dying of cancer, and everything that he says or everything that gets said to him always relates back to, well, you don't have much longer anyway. You're gonna be dead in 2 months, or you're a dying man. You're a dead man walking. It's just it gets repetitive after a while. It's like, okay, can we develop some more to these characters in this one core trait? But with that being said, I still enjoyed a lot of the writing and a lot of the way the characters interact and talk, and because like the main character, it's easy to kind of think that this is gonna be one of those strong, independent girl characters that's gonna be all badass, and yeah, I mean, that's there, but it's kind of more realistic because she doesn't have experience in the war. She doesn't have experience fighting. She just kind of gets thrown into it. So you see her hesitation throughout the book. You see her making mistakes constantly. You see her being headstrong after a while and having like almost tunnel vision when it comes to her ideals, and it just makes for a more realistic character than just this girl who all of a sudden becomes the ultimate badass within the first week of being in prison because it just felt more realistic her development throughout this book. There's also a villain that I really enjoy. He's kind of that standard henchman, like main henchman that the warden sends out to do all his dirty work. But I like this character because he actually comes off as confident, very competent character for being a henchman. Normally, henchman characters they just fail over and over, and their boss gets mad till they eventually kill them or whatever. But this guy, he actually does a really good job, and he's actually very smart and tactical. Most of the time, the mistakes, quote unquote, come from his boss giving him orders that he has to obey, which cause him to not be able to catch the main characters or whatever. So I really enjoy it. I'll take a minute to talk about the art because I've realized that in my last few reviews I just kind of forgot to mention the artwork of the books, which is an important part of comic books, but it is a part that I typically don't hold in as high regard as the storytelling, which I know is kind of an unpopular opinion when it comes to comic book reviews or the way people judge comic books. But the art is okay for me. It's not my favorite by any means. It's kind of got your typical sci-fi-ish kind of gritty, down to earth, apocalyptic kind of look to it. Most of the book is focused on another planet, so you have a lot of room to kind of make things look like they not normal, make things look more high tech, more futuristic. But at the same time, nothing's super shiny and chrome. Nothing looks brand new. Everything looks like you're in a battlefield. Like it looks like it's old. Even the prison, doesn't look like it's brand new. It looks like it's been there for a while. It looks like it needs maintenance, like it needs upkeep. I really do enjoy that part of it. Even the characters, none of the characters look like over the top gorgeous and handsome or whatever, or sexy. I mean, two of the main characters that we follow throughout the book are like young 20-something-year-old girls, but the artist doesn't draw them ugly per se, but doesn't draw them like glamorous or like sex symbols high. Like he draws them kind of realistic. Like there's even scenes where we see them like in their undergarments or whatever, and it doesn't feel like it's pandering or it's trying to sell sex to the book. It just feels like a woman that's in her underwear that has to get up and go to battle all of a sudden in the middle of the night. I don't know. The art style felt more realistic to me in a lot of ways. So if you're in the market for a new sci-fi, story, I would definitely recommend this one. You can find it on Kindle Unlimited right now if you have a Kindle Unlimited for free. So that's how I read it. So thank you guys for watching this review, and see you guys later. Have a good one. Overall, this was a pretty enjoyable read for me. I do think that it kind of teeters off in the middle a little bit. Like issues 1, 2 are pretty good. I feel like in the middle, around 3 and 4, it kind of slows down, and then it gets to a pretty big climax at the end. And then the way the volume ends, I don't really know what the direction of the next volume would be if there is another volume, but I'm pretty sure there is. So it's kind of left in the open.